In a quiet suburban neighborhood, the Johnsons were the picture of perfection. John Johnson, the father, was a well-known, successful businessman, admired by everyone for his drive and success. His wife, Olivia, was the glamorous socialite, beautiful, poised, and seemingly everything a woman could aspire to be. Their children, Alex and Emma, were the pride of their community, intelligent, well-mannered, and with bright futures ahead of them. On the outside, this family had it all. But what no one knew, what no one could ever imagine, was that behind their flawless facade, dark secrets were simmering, waiting to explode. As the years passed, the cracks in the Johnson family began to show. John, though outwardly successful, had become a distant figure at home. His ambition drove him, but it also alienated those closest to him. Olivia, once the picture of a happy housewife, began to feel trapped in a gilded cage. Her desire for a perfect life was becoming suffocating. The children, particularly Emma, struggled under the weight of their father's cold expectations. Emma had her own secret, a romance with a boy her father disapproved of. Meanwhile, Alex, the older son, began to spiral, indulging in risky behavior, feeling neglected and overshadowed by the family's obsession with perfection. One fateful evening, the perfect image of the Johnsons would be shattered forever. John was found dead in his kitchen, lying in a pool of blood, with a brutal stab wound to his chest. The police were immediately called to the scene, and as the investigation began, the shockwaves of the crime rippled through the community. At first, it seemed like a home invasion gone wrong. But something didn't feel right. The house was too quiet, the family too composed. Each member seemed to be hiding something. In the hours following John's death, the family were interviewed separately by the detectives. Olivia, though visibly shaken, appeared eerily calm. She spoke of her husband's late-night work schedule and his stressful life, always the perfect wife in the public eye. But her story had inconsistencies. Olivia mentioned how John had been looking at something strange on his computer that evening, yet no one could find what it was. Alex, the son, was oddly detached. He claimed he was out with friends that night, but his alibi didn't check out. Emma, the daughter, was too nervous, constantly shifting her story. She said she was in her room the entire time, but the police found traces of blood on her clothing. Something was amiss, and it was becoming clear that the Johnsons weren't as innocent as they seemed. As the investigation deepened, more disturbing revelations came to light. It was uncovered that John had been having an affair with a much younger woman, someone from his business circle. Olivia, though outwardly perfect, had known about it for months but had chosen to ignore it, until the affair had begun to unravel their marriage. But Olivia wasn't just a passive wife in this tale. She had her own secrets. In her search for comfort and escape from the tension at home, Olivia had rekindled a long-lost friendship with a former lover, a man who had been a dark presence in her past. Could she have murdered John out of revenge or in a desperate attempt to escape her loveless marriage? Meanwhile, Emma's secret relationship with her disapproved boyfriend had taken a darker turn. Her father's harsh expectations had driven her to rebel in the most dangerous ways. And Alex, the son, who had always lived in the shadow of his father's dominance, resented John for his controlling nature. As the family members struggled to maintain their composure, it became clear each one had a motive, but who actually killed John? John had always been a master of psychological manipulation. His expectations had turned Emma and Alex against each other and, in the process, had warped their sense of self-worth. Alex, feeling neglected and trapped in his father's shadow, began acting out with reckless behavior, seeking attention in dangerous ways. Emma, on the other hand, grew increasingly desperate to please her father while also battling against his suffocating control over her life. Their lives had become a toxic cycle of emotional manipulation. Olivia, too, was not exempt. She had tried desperately to maintain a perfect public image, hiding the emotional scars of years of manipulation. Her affair, however, had been an attempt to reclaim some semblance of control, but it was also an escape from the hell she felt trapped in. Could she have killed John to finally free herself from this toxic environment? As the investigation continued, new evidence came to light that suggested someone had been planning John's murder for months. Was it a crime of passion, or had it been a cold, calculated move to escape the years of emotional and psychological abuse? Just when the police thought they had everything figured out, a shocking twist turned the investigation on its head. Forensic evidence revealed that the murder weapon had been carefully hidden, and there were strange markings on it that didn't match anyone's fingerprints. The breakthrough came when the family's financial records were reviewed. Olivia's affair, her secret past, and her mounting debt seemed to point to a desperate motive, but something wasn't right. The detectives were blindsided by a revelation. The true mastermind behind the murder wasn't Olivia or the children, it was Alex. Alex had been planning his father's murder for months. With his father's constant emotional abuse and neglect, Alex had orchestrated the entire crime. He knew the perfect moment would come when everyone was at their breaking point, and the family would finally implode. Alex had used his father's affair, his mother's secret relationship, and Emma's rebellion as leverage to drive the family into chaos. The murder wasn't just an act of anger, it was the result of years of psychological torment. The trial was a media frenzy, with reporters from all over the nation watching the once perfect family fall apart. Olivia stood by her son, but the evidence was overwhelming. Emma's testimony, once supportive of her brother, soon began to shift. She confessed that Alex had hinted at his intentions in the days leading up to the murder. Olivia, meanwhile, faced mounting pressure as the truth of her past came to light. Her affair and her attempts to cover up her emotional breakdowns painted her as someone desperate to maintain a perfect image at any cost. As the courtroom drama unfolded, it was clear that betrayal ran deep within the Johnson family. Olivia had been hiding the truth about her own involvement. She knew more than she let on. But in the end, the truth was undeniable. Alex had pulled the trigger. His motive was not just revenge on his father but a twisted need to regain control of a life he felt had been stolen from him by John's cruelty. The verdict was delivered, and the Johnsons were left to pick up the pieces of their broken lives. Olivia, now a widow, faced the consequences of her choices, her perfect life destroyed. Emma, who had once idolized her father, was left with nothing but the painful memories of a childhood ruined by lies and manipulation. Alex, the son who had thought he could escape, was now in prison, a prisoner of his own dark thoughts. The world watched in disbelief as a family, once revered for its perfection, was torn apart by murder, manipulation, and betrayal. In the end, the question remained, was it love, jealousy, or something far darker that drove Alex to kill? And in a world where even the most perfect families have their secrets, who can we trust?